Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode. Today, it is my honor to be joined by the incredible, the ever so talented Thierry Wasser of Guerlain. And this is a brand, bottles of which I've been collecting for the past decade plus. And of course, my mother is a huge fan of the brand, and I'm a huge fan of the brand. And I must say, you've composed some of my favorite perfumes of all time. Thank you so much for this opportunity and for taking the time for me to ask you a few questions.
Okay, I'll try my best to answer cleverly. I'll try to be focused, but thank you for having me.
The pleasure is all mine. And of course, we spoke off camera as well. And I love your passion, your enthusiasm, and I can tell you're doing some incredible, incredible things. And the perfume industry is so lucky to have you. And I mean that.
Wow. Okay, that's an introduction. Thank you, Stephen.
Of course.
Okay.
So, getting started with Guerlain, some of my favorites have been Guerlain very bright and citrusy and minty. And then eventually I love some of the darker offerings from the brand, like Tonka Imperial or L'Homme Ideal has been one of my favorites. And the recent flankers have been wonderful as well. I suppose the first question I'd like to ask you is, for somebody who is just getting into the brand, what are some things that we can tell that person about the brand's history and the heritage, because it has such a rich heritage?
We started in 1828, almost 200 years from now.
Mm.
And Guerlain is a beauty house. We do skincare, makeup, and fragrances from the very beginning. And in the 19th century, at the first half of the 19th century, you didn't have that idea of cosmetic. It was hygiene. So we had a lot of toiletries products and skincare products, etc. That was the base of Guerlain's trade.
Sure.
So when the founder, Pierre-François Pascal Guerlain, opened the first store on Rue de Rivoli, it was in the lobby of an hotel where a lot of British rich tourists stayed. And that's how he started, selling his soaps and lotions and everything. It was rather successful. Soon after, another store in Rue de la Paix, near Place Vendôme. And there he had a brilliant idea.
Mm.
It was not called marketing at the time, but it was basically a way to put himself under the spotlight. He designed a fragrance for a special occasion, which was the wedding of Napoleon III and the Princess Eugenia.
Mm.
And he designed a bottle, he designed a fragrance, and gave that as a wedding gift. And the Empress was impressed by it, that she named Pierre-François Pascal Guerlain the perfumer of the imperial court. And that opened all the doors of royal houses around Europe. And that's the beginning of the fame, but especially on fragrance, because it was the Cologne Imperial that we still manufacture today.
I own it. I love it.
See? So you smell like Napoleon III and his wife.
That's amazing.
Wow. So we go back to those roots. And having this type of clientele, we had Alexander the Second, Tsar of Russia, the Empress of Austria for the moisturizing cream.
Sure.
Because Guerlain is an inventor. We invent things. Always.
Yeah.
We invented the lipstick in 1870. Because before that, it was a little jar and people were applying the rouge with the finger.
Mm.
And passing by a candle maker store, Guerlain looked at that. And for the first time, those candlesticks, which were standard thing to light a room, were colored. And he said, oh, that guy colored the wax. Why don't I do my wax red in a stick? And that's how he invented the lipstick. See, invention very often is just a simple observation that you put to the next step suiting your own business. Another fragrance from the 19th century we have is Jiki, that we still do manufacture.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And to do that, sourcing is key. Your question was what people should know about Guerlain. They should know that every single invention of Guerlain is produced by Guerlain. No frozen pizza in the freezer. Everything is homemade.
Yeah.
So, in order to do that home cooking, you need to source. And I do spend a good 40% of my annual time around the world sourcing. So you understand that you know exactly, perfectly what's in those bottles.
Yeah.
That's your responsibility. You owe that to your customers too. You know, now you have terms for that. It's called traceability, it's called sustainability, it's called whatever.
Sure.
We always did that. I've learned that from Jean-Paul Guerlain when I arrived, because before that I was a perfumer in big lab houses, if you go down Firmenich, and I had no business to do with manufacturing or sourcing. So I had to learn that from somebody, and that somebody was somebody, was Jean-Paul Guerlain, because that's what defined Guerlain. Everything's homemade, and that's, I think, a great, great, great point of differentiation.
I think it's impossible to talk to somebody nowadays and have them not be familiar with classics like Mitsuko and Shalimar. And these are so iconic, and they are spoken in the same breath with so many other beautiful, beautiful classics of the perfume world. And so just kind of analyzing that evolution of the brand and where it started and its roots and where it's heading today. And there's such a wide range of olfactive profiles. And of course, some of the ones that you mentioned earlier, and I'm thinking there's everything from neroli and orange blossom and the bergamot and the citruses. And then, of course, we get into some darker compositions with tonka bean and vanilla and resins and balsams. And so one thing that I've very quickly learned as I've delved into this brand quite deeply, and I own several dozen perfumes from the brand. I've been purchasing Guerlain products for a very long time. One thing that I've learned is that there's something for every mood. There's something for every occasion. There's something for every feeling, every sentiment. And so I think this is a brand where, if you were to ask me, or if somebody were to ask me, where do you start? I would say just you have to have that experience for yourself. You walk into one of these places that carry the brand and you try everything, and it's so personal and it's so subjective. And of course, the richness and the heritage of the brand. I didn't know that bit about the lipstick. So thank you for sharing that with me.
I got
That's quite
a
impressive.
lot of stories in my toolbox too, if you want.
Of course.
Talk about it, because there is a fact, there is a story behind every single bottle, behind every single fragrance, behind every single skincare product. It's the result of a careful thinking. Okay, Abeille Royale didn't come from nowhere. Orchidée Impériale doesn't come from nowhere. Once again, it is the observation of a couple of things which trigger the idea of the research. You search, why do orchids live so long? And after you go deep into that thought, and eventually you come out with a beautiful range of cosmetic products which has that longevity power in it that you discovered through years of research.
Yeah.
And after you put it in a jar, you present it beautifully. The texture of the cream has to be right for what the active ingredient does. If it's light and fluid, it doesn't have the feeling of repair. So the texture needs to be rich. And what about the scent? Those products are scented. Orchidée Impériale is fragranced.
Of course.
So when you design for a fragrance, the star is the fragrance. But if you imagine a scent for a skincare line, the star is the skincare line. And you try to figure out the benefit of it. And empirically, but it is what creation does, you create a scent which underline the effect of the cosmetic so that you have a holistic experience.
When you're setting out to create a fragrance, do you look for the inspiration first? Is there a concept that needs to be fulfilled? Is it a raw material that really moves you? Or is it just something that's kind of blank slate and whatever happens kind of brings you to that creative process?
Yeah, I mean, creation, to me, it's very difficult to be vocal about it
Mm,
because it's always uh, a journey which is sometimes very lonely.
mm.
And now there is a team, there is a creative director, Delphine, etc. It is a lonely path.
Is it?
What is a fragrance? A fragrance is a peace of mind. It's not a liquid in a bottle. It is an idea. It is a creative act.
Mhm.
It's deliberate. And then, since there is no rule in this language of fragrance, it makes the creative process difficult because there are iteration after iteration. You blend things, and eventually, you see, you have that idea. This is the idea. You write the formula, you send it to the lab. The lab brings you a little lab sample here.
Sure.
You smell it, and you realize that what's in that little lab sample is not this, but that.
Mm.
Could take years to get this.
Yeah.
That's the iteration. That's because there is no grammar. When you write a novel, when you write a book, to make sense, there is a help. It's called a grammatical order. There is an order.
Mm.
Here, there is none. There are no rules. So, to go back to your question, when you want to discover Guerlain fragrances, oof, you might be overwhelmed by all those stories. That's why we have help behind the counter. And I think the beauty advisors, who actually are the major part of our employees, they are behind counters. They give you that service to help you eventually find the fragrance of your life, eventually, or at least of your choice.
They do. Yeah.
And when you have a catalog of 110 plus fragrances, you might get dizzy. So that's where a consultation or any kind of tool or discussion with the beauty agent, no, beauty advisor, but anyways, a beauty advisor is here to help.
Yeah.
But very often, people think too much. No, I don't like patchouli. Okay. But there are so many ways to work a patchouli.
Of course.
So stop thinking and smell. But fragrance, our fragrance response, or the response to a fragrance, is emotional.
Not cerebral.
And people
Yeah.
don't want to get emotional across of a desk at Bergdorf Goodman, okay? You don't get naked in front of strangers. So you need rational talk.
Mm.
And that's where I think there is a little problem here. Because the list of ingredients is as boring as the list of the grocery when you go out shopping. What does it tell?
Yeah.
What's important is the reaction you have versus the olfactory experience of a fragrance.
You know, you mentioned some of these sales experts, and I was at the airport in Dubai, and I was at the Guerlain counter. And the people working there are so incredibly knowledgeable, but the hospitality and the experience that my friend and I had there was unmatched, unparalleled. I mean, we were given the opportunity to really just try everything in the store. I mean, there were no restrictions, and we just, like you said, it's such an emotional experience. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people. They're trying to be a little too cerebral with it and a little too analytical in saying that, well, this contains oak moss, and historically I haven't been a fan of oak moss, or this contains patchouli, or this ingredient or that ingredient. But when you strip a lot of the labels and the expectations and a lot of these prior associations that people might have with a particular fragrance, you smell something and you're like, oh my God, that's beautiful. What is it?
Mm-hmm.
And you might end up telling them, well, just so you know, this is an amber dominant perfume. Oh, I've never been a fan of amber. Yeah, but when you went into it with
You
that
just did love
preconception,
it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, honest to goodness, it's something that I think needs to be kept in one's mind of just go in there, don't have any expectations, try the perfumes, and of course, I mean everybody knows Guerlain, right? And if I can share something with you, 85% of my TikTok followers are women. And I can't tell you how many of those women leave comments on my videos on a daily basis, and they tell me my favorite is Chalimont. I still wear it to this day. We know it's been around since the 1920s, and they have so many of the flankers, the Millesime flanker, this flanker, that flanker. So my question to you is, and this is kind of off the record, but is there another fragrance or any other fragrances from the brand that you would recommend to such a woman who has such a strong affinity for Shalimar? Maybe something else from Guerlain that you think she should acquire?
Following our previous conversation about being emotional in front of a scent, who am I to give a prescription? Well, first point.
Yeah.
I'm not the Dr. Wasser who prescribe, oh, you had 2 pills of Shalimar, try one of Spiritueuse Double Vanille. No. But basically, I would say in the realm of ambery fragrance, Shalimar indeed was born in the 20s, more specifically in 1925. So we're celebrating its 100th anniversary next year.
That's incredible.
And I have nothing to do with it, but it is incredible. You're
Well-
right. You see, in La Matière, for example, I was mentioning immediately after your question Spiritueuse Double Vanille, because that would be fairly a candidate for Shalimar lovers. But once again, it depends of why do you wear a fragrance?
Right.
Some people have a signature fragrance. So why on earth would I recommend something else if you love Shalimar? I wear the same scent for the past 50 years. So if you try to sell me a new one, I'd say, thank you. Because my scent is the definition of me, even in people's mind. I'm here in New York. Somebody smells Abbey Rouge Eau de Toilette in Paris and immediately I appear. It's a good trick to be everywhere at the same time.
Yeah.
So when you have a signature scent, that's what it is. Now, because I never ever judge. Kids don't judge. And I'm one of those kids still. Everybody fragrance him or herself for our own reasons. But there is a reason. It's not a functional product. It's not like you're going to step out of the door and, oof, I forgot. And off you go. It is not functional. I think a fragrance, especially choosing a fragrance, that was the topic of the question 2 hours ago.
It's okay.
Is to find something which bring you joy,
Right.
which bring you strength. Our self-esteem is challenged every day. You're a social media guru,
I try.
and thanks to social media, you're immediately judged on image, on appearance. So your self-esteem sometimes could be definitely challenged. And beauty is a great antidote to those challenges. Because, you see, I travel a lot, and to come and see you, and maybe I look like an old fart in front of
Far
you,
from it, come on.
but I put a little terracotta under those eyes because those bags were all red. So in front of the mirror, I'm here and with the brush. And I'll say, okay, Wasser, you look good. You do that for yourself.
Yeah.
And then eventually for the image. When someone would put lipstick, say, wow, I look good. So you're gonna fat for your day. When you do your skincare and your skin feels good, I was talking about the texture of orchidea and stuff. So it's a whole experience. Wow, you feel good, and you do that for you. Because I'm going to cite RuPaul, because if you don't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else?
It's true.
And beauty starts there with you.
That's true.
And fragrance, makeup, skincare, all the same, is about you, the way you look at yourself, and then how you project in society.
Well, that is so beautifully said. I don't want to say anything to counteract it or butcher it. That was amazing.
Mm. That's how and that's how Guerlain function.
Yeah,
But it's trade. Once again, we're no fashion brand. We're a beauty house.
that's right. Listen, you have been so generous with your time, and I can't tell you how much it means to me. I sincerely appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. I suppose to conclude, would you mind for a couple minutes telling us a little bit about Guerlain's bespoke experience?
Sure, we did this kind of service for a long time. I
Mm,
told you 1853 bespoke fragrance for the Empress and the Emperor of France for their wedding.
of course.
And then all those royals and imperials have been fragranced to that bespoke channel. Do you think that the Tsar Alexander II would wear Montguerlain? No, it didn't exist, but anyway, you understand what I mean? No, it was fragrance made to measure. And after Jacques Guerlain was, I would say, a dandy. We would say a socialite today.
Right.
He was acquainted with a lot of artists and jet setters. I would even to say that anachronism. He was in every party, every concert, and he was friend with a lot of artists. So he did bespoke fragrance for a couple of them, etc., etc. So today we just perpetuate that service with who wants to take on that journey
Right.
because it is a journey. We meet with the candidate, let's say, and he or she have a conversation. And once again, it's like choosing a fragrance uh, at one of our counter.
Mm,
Says, stop thinking. You're thinking too much. I don't want to know if you love patchouli or bergamot. That's not the point. How do you envision things? And everybody's different. So you have to. Here I talk a lot, but there you listen a lot. If possible, because sometimes people are shy. So you have to. It's like being at the shrink, basically. Because I try, even if it's the first meeting, but I try to get an emotional sense of the person.
right.
And once this is done, that meeting is done, maybe we'll have a second one, but I prepare three different leads,
Mhm.
like sketches, and we meet again. And here, again, I'm a little demanding because a lot of people would say everything's beautiful. I said, no, not everything's beautiful. If there is something you need to trash, please go ahead. I'm not going to take it personally.
Right.
Otherwise, if you don't have the commitment to that, if you don't want to commit to that and engage in the trip, in the journey,
Right.
you're not going to be happy with the result. Then we carry on, etc., until we're happy. And after it is delivered in a beautiful crystal B bottle with little accessories, and that's that. It's always a great journey because you learn how to engage and meet new human beings. And on the other end of the spectrum, when you go source your ingredients, you see people who pick flowers, who farm flowers, who distill and transform flowers on site,
Hmm.
and you have other encounters. And that's where you meet truly brother and sisterhood. I know it exists because I meet it all the time. Last week I was in Africa for Ilang Ilang. It was my sixth trip there or something to see our partners. They give you love, they give you true love, and you try to fix problems if they are. You try to improve your sourcing routes because they are true partners.
Sure.
And if you don't talk and if you don't meet your partners, what kind of person are you? And that's between the bespoke, between the field trips. It's such a joy. And you have to understand that every single of those fragrances is incarnated. Just an example, for rose oil, we need an average of 3.5 metric ton of flowers to make 1 kilo of oil.
Wow.
And each flower is handpicked. There are thousands of people engaged in the flower picking, and flowers don't travel.
Right.
So they are distilled on site. But that flower, once it's picked, 18 hours, 24 hours, it's a dead body.
Sure.
Well, what is that transformation do? From that mortal flower, you get an immortal oil. It is philosophical. It's not a transformation, it's a transfiguration, what
Wow.
distillation is. It's a little philosophical, but you have to figure that out. And all those actors are speaking to you here. And you do that when you know your sourcing, you know your manufacturing, and you know your business. It's not a scent. It's much more than that. It's maybe a deep sorry already,
No,
but,
I love it.
but there is emotion and there is tens of thousands. And I put that number again, tens of thousands of people in each bottle who were acting to get there. So that's what the fragrance is. I don't want to blindside you or whatever, but I have a question. What is your take on dupes?
So for me, it's taking the art of a perfume and minimizing it to a large extent. It's almost taking perfume and making it look like something to be looked at in a functional through a functional lens as opposed to an artistic lens.
Okay, we were talking about functionality. So, okay, because you see, I'm puzzled by the increasing awareness on the net, on YouTube, on social medias, etc. about this.
Yeah.
And actually, I was thinking of that by talking about those people.
Rightfully so, of course.
A brand, whatever brand it is responsible. You have to commit to your partners. You have to endure, I would say, scrutiny from the public on your supply chain. You have to be responsible of it. It's a law in Europe to be responsible as a company.
Sure.
And when you endorse that responsibility, definitely it has a price. Because between dupe and actually the things have names and words matter. A dupe is a fake, it's a counterfeit. And as long as there is no intellectual property attached to the creation, you can copy. And I have nothing against copy. We started the perfumery school looking at the masters, like a painter would look at the Da Vinci or something
Sure.
and try to copy to get the technique. As a child, I wanted to be a fireman. So I wanted to copy the fireman, and the little girl would be a nurse. That's something which will define you as an adult. So you can copy attitude or personalities. I don't mind. And a lot of the babies or the kids are not firefighters or nurses. They evolve and they became adults. They become their own personality. So copying is one thing. But saying that one copy is 90% this or 95% that, I cannot comprehend that. It's something which definitely upsets me because fake, I'm going to name them like this today.
Sure.
Now,
Yeah.
fake don't have the same responsibilities. They very often outsource a lot of the manufacturing and even the invention, if you can call them like that, since you copy. And we were talking about beauty advisors.
Mm.
The major part of our payroll is behind the counters, those beauty advisors. What do you do with them? With those, I mean, fake fragrances. You don't have the same thing. I understand that people say, yeah, but the price is different, but also the scent is different. A fake can be close to an original, maybe 80, 90, 95%. Who knows? It depends on how skilled the people who make it are.
Mm.
It's like the guy who make a faint Picasso. You can always tell, but it still have the feeling.
Right.
Now, why would you buy a Picasso? Or why would you buy a fake Picasso? To me, it's a mystery.
Yeah.
If you do want to wear a fragrance for all the good reasons that we mentioned earlier for you, and you're happy with one of those fragrances, fine. But don't define that fragrance versus another one. That's what bothers me. And today, brands do advertise. Fake use influencers to advertise because otherwise they wouldn't be anywhere.
Mm.
So I'd like for people like you to eventually educate your followers and your public with those huge differences. When you were a perfumer and you started from an idea, from a blank page, those iterations that I mentioned earlier can take months or weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a peace of mind. It is an intellectual gesture to invent a formula. While when you copy, you have to have skills for that. I don't deny it at all. But instead of those iterations from a blank page, you got an analytical result up to 80 or whatever percentage. And after you try to get close to the thing. That's what we do when we learn fragrances at perfumery school. But the destination is not to make a business out of it, it's to learn.
To educate, yeah.
That's why I asked you that question, because I know that it is in the air. And that's why I wanted to have your point of view about that, because for me, fake are unacceptable because they are hurting the people behind the counter. They are hurting all my partners around the world. Not that in fake, eventually you'll find rose oil or patchouli or whatever.
Sure.
But fake reproduce an effect, and we don't know what kind of material do those effects. It's like when you go to a party and there is a magician and he does tricks. You know there is a trick, but you don't know what the trick is, but you go, wow.
You observe it, yeah.
So, wow. But there will always be a difference between the original and the fake, I think.
Yeah. There will be. The production, the quality of the raw materials, is it cut with solvents, everything.
No, but this is technical. I mean,
Well, political
if
matters
the,
as well.
I understand, but if it's cut with solvent, the quality is very subjective.
Yeah.
Once again, you have to find an effect. That's why the perfume who do those fakes are brilliant. But we don't do the same job.
Right. Right.
But they're good at it since you can duplicate something with spins, with effects.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say because otherwise that I admire them, but it's a good job. I respect that. But what upsets me is then when you make a comparison, say this is 200 euros and this is 20. That doesn't fly. You want all our people to be out of a job behind the counters where they give you that welcoming at Dubai airport?
I hear you.
It's part of the experience.
Yeah.
Okay, we went somewhere else. Sorry.
No, you have no idea how invaluable this information is. And I know there are people at home who are watching this video that are really like sponges and they're taking all of this in because as I sit here and I listen to you, it is so invaluable for me to have these thoughts coming directly from the source, the expert, the man himself. So, I really value all of the time that you're taking to just sit here and answer our questions and also share your insight. It's
Because if you're nice enough to air that part, I think I count on you to elevate
mm,
people's sight on this, which called industry, because
yeah,
it is an industry. But tutorials with makeup, one face with brand thing and one with other, and after you say, it doesn't work to me.
yeah,
It's not just fragrances, those things. And name things their names. A dupe is a fake.
mm,
Okay? It's you have to understand that. And our trade is not protected today
yeah,
legally
yeah,
from these kind of things because there is no copyright on a scent, there is no intellectual property attached to the creations, and so far it was a gentleman agreement between whoever actors are. But my point is you cannot compromise yourself, all influencers. I say compromise yourself, saying this is like this, because it's not true. I had the chance to meet you, and during my conversation, it grew in me because we talked about brother and sisterhood around the world with the pickers, with the farmers, and suddenly I had that idea of these dupes because I know that online a lot of people do promote
yeah.
these kind of things.
Especially over the last few years, yeah.
Yeah, and once again, inspiration from other thing, why not? But not every kid become a firefighter. So you can have your idols, but those idols are here to forge your own identity.
Mm,
And you can steal a little something from the idol. Okay. But what's important is to be you. And fake are not you. They are not having a personality because they stole it from somebody else's personality.
mm. It's been such a pleasure, and this is the most insightful conversation I've ever had with somebody from the industry, and I really value your time and I respect what you're doing. So
So since
thank
I'm
you.
not reimbursed by Social Security, I just send you my bill and it's gonna be heavy.
Just send your invoice to my people. We'll take care of
All
it.
right, good.
Hey, thank you so
Bye,
much for
Thierry.
everything. I really appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you to those of you at home. Of course, I really appreciate your viewership. If you took something of value from this video, which I know you did, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and give this video a thumbs up.
Yeah,
Thanks again.
hit, please.
You know, the whole social media influencer shtick that we have to go through at the end. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.